So if you wouldn't mind taking your seat, we'll have our concluding session. I'm very honoured to introduce Luca Cumani, who obviously has had a hugely successful training career and also worked for many years with Mr. Gerald Lee, and he's going to discuss the thoughts about future and safety for horses in training and racing. Luca.
Thank you, Celia. First of all, good afternoon to all of you. Very nice to see you, so many of you here. And I'd like to thank all of the scientists and practitioners that are here today to make this lecture so interesting and compelling. Then my next thanks are to Celia and Sarah Whitney for organizing this event, and to Nick, who started it all, excuse me, after Gerald died and wanted to have a legacy in racing, leave a legacy in racing. Nick very, very kindly took it over and came up with the idea of getting the Burford Cottage Educational Trust involved and running the event, and now Fred Varley very ably is chairman of the trust and does an excellent job. Thank you. I just said you do an excellent job. Here we are. Celia, thank you very much for asking me to say 2 words. Don't worry, I'll get my own back sometime. So the biggest thanks must also go to Gerald Lee, who provided the funds and for this to happen. Gerald was a man of total integrity and intellectual rigor. He was a pleasure to work for and a pleasure to work with. He would never leave any stone unturned. He probed and quizzed and asked until he was satisfied by the answers. So you could never fob him off with some half-cocked idea or half-cocked answer, because he wouldn't have it. You always had to really make sure that you knew what you were talking about and he was satisfied with your answers. He was an exceptional breeder. In the late 70s, 80s and 90s, he produced a string of fantastic racehorses that I had the privilege to train. And sadly, he then passed away in the early 2000s. Enhancing horse safety and in training and racing. This is a big, complicated topic. Of course, we all want to do that. We all want to get to the point in which we can eliminate fatalities altogether. But that's a pipe dream, of course it is, because we never get to that point, because there'll always be accidents. And horses, as we know, and I have experience of it, can get fatally injured in a paddock when they're totally left by themselves. However, it is our moral duty to reduce fatalities as much as possible, and thanks to the scientific advances over the last 20 years or 30 years, we're slowly gaining some ground. Knowledge is never arrived at through a eureka moment. It always gained little step by little step, and it's gained through trial and error, experimentation, collaboration, exchange of ideas, and that is why these lectures, this series of lectures, are so fundamentally important, because it brings together people with experience and people with knowledge to exchange ideas and hopefully stay in touch with each other and carry on exchanging ideas and furthering the knowledge that they have in the racehorses. I was lucky enough that in 43 years of training, I only really had 3 vets, and they were all exceptional. I started being looked after by Peter Rostel, and we all know what a giant of the world, the veterinary world, he was. I was then passed on to Rob Pillsworth, and we had a fantastic amount of time together, and I learned from him at every step of the way. And I know when he retired, he very kindly gave me a present with an inscription saying that he learned from me. And how wrong was he? I learned much more from him than he could have possibly learned from me. And my last vet before I stopped training was Pete Ramzan from you heard today. And he is, in my opinion, and I think in most people's opinion, the foremost practitioner in the world at the moment, and he's been instrumental and so helpful to me in determining when to run horses, when not to run them from a point of view of soundness, and how to look after them to the best of everybody's ability, to make them perform to the best of their ability. We all heard about the new diagnostic tools that have come on stream over the last few years, including all the ones that we were told about earlier on today. And whilst it is difficult to determine when a horse is fit to race and when it's not, it still remains something that we all must strive to do with the use of these tools. And these tools can be diagnostic tools. They can be perfected and improved over the years, and I'm sure new ones will come along, and new ones will be better than the previous ones. But however, it is everybody's duty, and we heard a lot about it before, about the social duty of care we have towards the horses and the social license. It remains everybody's duty to strive to do the best we possibly can. And I think that one of the most important things should be to try and, the most important objective for the next few years should be to try and achieve and agree on a common protocol whereby horses can be examined by the same kind of protocol throughout the world, so that we don't have these inconsistencies that we send a horse from here to Australia and it gets turned down from somebody there not to run, or from Hong Kong or America or wherever it is. If we could eventually come to a protocol that satisfies everybody and everybody agrees, and I'm sure that will come, because that is called progress. And with, as I said before, with the tools that we have and with the tools that will be developed, it will be very possible eventually to get to the point at which we can all agree when a horse can race and when a horse can't. On my final note, I will leave you with a story. I have to, because my former colleague, Mark Prescott, was very funny this morning and told some fantastic stories. Mine, unfortunately, won't be as funny. I'm not as good a storyteller, but when one of my visits to Australia for the Melbourne Cup, I was put on a platform and interviewed, and the guy was going through the successes that I had over the years in various different countries. And in the end, he said to me, "Mr. Cumani, how come that with all the successes you had around the world, the Queen hasn't asked you to train for her?" And I thought for a moment. I said, "Well, the truth is that I'm Italian, and I'm more likely to be asked to train by the Pope than the Queen." Thank you very much.